Well, it seems we're live. Welcome. Let me quickly check that this goes through to LinkedIn. And yes, I'm in an event. I can read your comments. Just takes usually like 30 seconds for the stream to go through the servers to the website and then to reach me. Here are you. So yeah, seems like we're live, and that also I guess we're going to get started in a second. People are joining, so hi and welcome to Are You Hiring for C++? I do have like 2 breaks in this to look at the audience chat if you have any questions, especially about the things I'm talking about. Some of you are maybe already subscribed to the new newsletter, which I will be talking about. I also be talking about the job fair, which is planned for end of May. And with that, let's get started. Just, if you're actually hiring for C++ and seeing this, shoot me a note. Just, contact request in mail, what you're choosing as, or chat in the message in the chat. Then we can get into contact, and I'll be talking about what are the plans and what Mini C++ offers for hiring currently. And I've already mentioned the newsletter, which is one of the things. So let's get into the presentation and get things started. All right. Hi and welcome to Are You Hiring for C++? Quickly talking through what Meeting C++ has to offer, showing you some of the queries I've had in the past few days, and generally talking about my experiences with finding jobs, mostly on LinkedIn at the moment. As I've already mentioned, end of May, 27th and 28th May, Meeting C++ is hosting an online C++ job fair, which I'm looking for employers which want to represent there. So just as a head start, yes, I return to the job fair and some of the details later, but first let's talk about a few other things. Conference is announced, and today I published the call for talks. So if you want to speak at Meeting C++, the talk submission form is live, and generally anything conference related, you can also reach out to me on LinkedIn and talk about things there. But for now, today, I do want to focus on Meeting C++ recruiting, which is the hiring part where Meeting C++ tries to connect the C++ community with the folks that have the C++ positions and jobs. And since sometime I do ask a question, and that is, does your employer or your employer is currently hiring for C++, not hiring for C++, or letting folks go? And this is Twitter March last month, and I've have these for the last years, and sometimes it's 50%. And in March on Twitter, it was 40%, and almost 27 or 28% letting folks go. This has changed a bit now, but also when you look, it's just 50 votes, so it's every vote is more than 1% here. So yeah, Twitter has become a bit of lacking in terms of reach and for queries like that. So I probably will then continue with that, doing that on LinkedIn, because on LinkedIn this still is working. And here we see that in March we had 54%, which were saying that their employers were hiring, and I'm going to look at those C++ jobs in a minute on LinkedIn, and 33% not hiring, and that is the one thing which stays the same. Just the same question with 138 votes this time, and you see that there's like 47. So we have from 54, that's 7% going down, and more people actually reacting here from folks that have seen firings. I don't know if that has anything to do with certain things happening. We see that definitely the lookout in March was probably still a bit more positive than what happened in the last days. I think it has a bit of an influence, making people unsure. But definitely, we're seeing basically that there's always a mix in those numbers and no clear trend at the moment. And I thought to also ask this just in my profile. And here we see that basically with my page, Meeting C++, I do reach way more people that only do C++. I think here it's mostly people saying not hiring for C++ that are not related to C++ often. And so that's kind of, it's better for me to ask the question in Meeting C++ and more, which I continue to do so. And generally, those numbers don't matter so much if you're hiring, right? And that's the folks I'm looking for. So generally, my feeling is it has become easier to hire in the last years. It's become easier to find candidates. If you're hiring, I'd like to have feedback on that opinion also. And let me quickly read chat. And so I had this idea already last year in fall, but then the conference came. So now it's there. It's a bi-weekly newsletter. So I, at the moment, send it every 2 weeks. It's strongly focusing on C++ openings. So it's a C++ jobs newsletter. So of course, it's doing that. Under job post meetingcpp.com, you'll find the form. And unfortunately, I have to put that behind a login, which makes it more difficult to have people post jobs, but maybe I change that. But generally, that is a requirement for the form that you have a login. And at the moment, through LinkedIn, 1,600 subscribers for this. If you're not subscribed, then you find the newsletter featured on my LinkedIn profile together with the Blockroll newsletter. And also you can subscribe to this newsletter on my normal page on meetingcpp.com. If you create an account or already have an account, then you go into either you create an account or you go into profile edit, and then you are able to subscribe to this newsletter there. So it's not LinkedIn only. And together we are now around 1,600 subscribers, but I think that will increase over Easter. It's a monthly newsletter also that I send the jobs which have been submitted to my normal LinkedIn page newsletter, which has 25,000 subscribers. So that's something I will be doing. So this will generally, for your C++ jobs, give you good reach. Okay. And I've sent the first version already last week, so I can show you some numbers. First thing which I've learned through sending those newsletters through LinkedIn now is that not everyone gets an email, that some people subscribe to those newsletters or can subscribe to those newsletters on LinkedIn without getting an email. So if you wonder why didn't I get the email, that is a LinkedIn setting where you can, and you maybe disable that. LinkedIn likes to send a lot of emails, and a lot of people have disabled it for that reason. So go into settings and find that under notifications somewhere. But otherwise, you just can read it under LinkedIn, and you get a notification then in LinkedIn, as you see. And, roughly, people have looked twice here. And yeah, actually it's 35%. That changed today from 34%. That opening rate is really good. So people are interested, but it's also kind of the first version with real jobs. But I kind of see that from the other newsletters I do on LinkedIn, that 30% is quite common for the newsletters I send. So this newsletter definitely already has a good reach and will increase in reach, of course. And all this is without pushing it too much. I've been busy the last weeks in March and in April to implement this. And then basically send a first message on what the newsletter is, and that is where most of the subscribers are in. And then I post a little bit about it here. And also today I expect some increase in the newsletter. So obviously I'm looking for positions to be shared, right? On LinkedIn and on my network. So if you submit through the form posting.meetingscpp.com, then you have the ability to also post the text. That's not needed, but you can. And if I have the text of the job ad, then I can put it on Meeting C++ also, and I can just post it into the network. I'm generally right now talking to HR folks and headhunters and agencies in that point to, onboard them. And generally, yeah, if you're interested, reach out and let's talk about this. Also, kind of this got me kind of, curious. Are you looking for a new C++ job? And I thought I'd ask the audience I have with a page, which is very C++ focused. And I think that you're probably a bit more motivated to answer this query when you're actually looking for a job, right? So I think it's not like that on LinkedIn only 10% of people are not looking for a job. But I do think that LinkedIn generally has already a shift towards job seeking or being interested in jobs. But it's also nowadays a bit of a social network, and so not everybody is looking for jobs, and 90% is a bit high. But it's interesting to see. And then generally, when I do something like that, I can, link the newsletter. As I said, you can find it on my profile. And if you're looking on YouTube, I probably will put it in the links below. And that generally also has made me look into the kind of jobs for C++ you find at LinkedIn. And so those jobs you see here, that's not an ad or something. That's just what LinkedIn showed in March. And the range which I've seen is like this has been the highest, 653 jobs for Germany in C++. And back then it showed me like it was 123 new, which fits because mostly it's around 500 to 550. And last Sunday it was at 490 when I looked this up. So so that's the Easter break coming, right? And it's a Sunday, so some people have taken off their jobs on Friday. And usually I try to look at that on Tuesday. So Mondays and Tuesdays now is basically where I'm looking around to talk to folks and find C++ jobs. And so on Sunday it showed that like 13 new jobs were there. And I think this week was like 20 or new something when I looked at it today. So there's some sort of fluctuation. I don't have a screenshot of it here, but I also looked on other jobs, which is the next slide here, worldwide, right? But I don't have this job screenshot, right? But what I paid attention today to is like how old are the jobs there. And I saw that for Switzerland, there was a 6 months old job. But otherwise, I had the impression that the jobs are pretty new or pretty like the last 3 months, let's say it like that. But over time, I will get a feeling for that. And if you have like an experience with that in the chat, just, let us know. And so I was like, well, I've already had looked at some of the other countries like United States and Canada, for example, here. And it showed me like the new positions there. It only shows it for the last 3 searches, which is kind of sad. But this made me curious, and I thought for today's presentation, I just go on a world tour and see where are the C++ jobs. There's lots of C++ jobs in India, it seems, and the United States. There's a good amount of them in Germany, France, Netherlands for a small country with 76 results, also very good. Singapore, 71 results, good. Spain, Canada, it's the usual. Sweden, and of course, it's always biased to people using LinkedIn in that country, like Brazil. I don't know if that's like representative of the market there. And generally, with Ireland, it's a service economy, and C++ programmers are there in Ireland. I know quite a lot of people doing C++ in Ireland, but it's only a few companies as far as I know. Generally interesting to look at that. And the next C++ jobs newsletter I plan to send is next week on Wednesday, probably. So if you have your positions, then submit them today to the jobs newsletter, and the jobs newsletter then probably is ready next week on Wednesday. But wait, there's more. Let's talk about what I have been offering for some time now through Meeting C++ Online for hiring, which is the job fair. This started in 2020 as a small experiment, and then 2021 we started as a full version to have the job fair running. And since then it has happened every year. This year, March unfortunately did not happen, but also I didn't have the time to talk to a lot of people. Now I not only have the job fair, I have the jobs newsletter, and I have a lot more time to spend with hiring folks and companies, employers. And so I'm very confident that the May job fair will happen. Then for 2021 to 2024, we aimed at 4 to 5 events per year, and last year we had 2 events. And the whole concept behind the job fair is to meet online with candidates and to chat about C++ with them, and of course also to introduce you as an employer to them. And these are 2 events, the first day on 3 o'clock and the second day on 8 o'clock in the evening, 8 p.m., 20 o'clock. Berlin time, both times, to just cover different time zones, but also have folks, give folks a chance to come and talk to us if they're working on the day. And then there's a CV sharing form, which I'm going to talk about next. This is something which is powered by the job fair, but also the jobs newsletter is linking to it, so people have already responded to that. So the job fair, I will return into the form in a second. The job fair is kicked off by a live stream like I do now, and then candidates can join the job fair through that, or just generally through my user group already knowing about it. And for that, I need early signups from employers to be able to advertise it, to let people know that, company X is there and they do that and this, and then they can come and talk to you on the job fair. I do employer branding, but that's not what I'm talking today about so much. If you're interested in that, reach out to me. So the CV sharing form is always online, and if you're sponsoring the job fair, then you get 6 months of a listing, and the CV upload form is just cvupload.meetingcp.com if you want to share your resume or CV with Meeting C++. And that is the form. It allows candidates to share their CV/resume with the sponsors of the form, and so you can say I wanted to be listed in the candidate listing of Meeting C++ for 6 months listing, which we're going to see in a second, a bit of statistics on it. And basically this form creates a light profile and allows us to draw statistics on the general audience. And I've already mentioned the candidate listing. So right now we have 58 candidates listed from 23 countries, and most of them are from Europe. And if you choose that option, you're listed for 6 months. And if a new employer comes, then they can look at those candidates and see which of those would be a fit for us, and we can contact them. And this is how such a listing on the website looks. Just to get you a feeling what people are actually using the form for. And there's always candidates which choose a lot of C++ skills And then there's candidates which only choose a few. So it's like, there's some minimizing or maximizing strategies which you see with candidates there. But for meaning C++, it gives the chance to know the knowledge and the things which are important to C++ in the candidate pool, like C++ standards. What are people confident with, right? C++ skills. And this kind of tells folks that do C++, and it's interesting for our community, what kind of C++ devs are out there, what do they know. And currently in the candidate pool, this looks like this. So we have object orientation and CMake and modern C++ on the 3rd to 5th place, and Linux and C++ 17 has always been on the lead in the last weeks. But this is a bit of a change which I see currently. But with candidate pool being a rolling thing, some candidates after 6 months drop out. New candidates will be added today and the following weeks. This probably is a bit of a change to see. But it's interesting that C++ 11 and C++ 14 have, with this year for the first time, actually dropped below and out of the top 5. And 2 options which are new are Juice and C++ 23, which are just, starting to get some traction. They're actually new this week, and there's only 2 candidates which had the option to choose this. I also asked for the fields where people have worked in. And so we see that with the candidate listing right now, desktop is again on top, followed by embedded and automotive. And then there's, people coming from university and science background, and so on, right? There is a big mix of various different backgrounds, which I reach throughout the community. And so last year, I didn't have a lot of time to care for the job fair. And so we only had 2 companies show up. And I know that a lot of C++ developers, advise their companies to come, but also it has become difficult for companies to spend extra budget on hiring. So that's why the job fair in last year kind of only saw 92 unique candidates on the forum from 39 countries, which is still like a lot, a lot of international reach. And the top 5 here is usually Germany, India, and United States. And India used to be the number 1 position for a lot of years. So I'm very happy to see this change, that Germany is now number 1 for last year. And then again, with the job fair becoming again more popular with companies and more the jobs newsletter, etc., making this more popular, I think this is a thing which we will see that this increases again, and also increases more in international submissions. And I've already talked about the C++ skills. Here is the 2024 version aggregate. And there we see that the top 5 is Linux, C++ 14, 17, 11, and then modern C++ and CMake being, 5th and 6th place, with 14 and 11 being basically on the same. Fields of work from last year, we see that embedded was the big topic last year, and that has been a trend for some time now. And also in the jobs I've looked at, I see that a lot of C++ jobs are from embedded. Desktop, server, and then again university. And so we see it's like, the rolling change there. And I do have a survey tool at Meeting C++, and when I had those aggregates, I thought, well, actually it would be interesting to compare to the overall community to see. And so since June 2023, I have those 2 skill question and the question about the work fields in the community surveys. And here you see the skills question, where you see basically that, if I make it a bit bigger, yeah, it's the C++ standards and Linux, which is like in the top 5, followed by CMake and modern C++. There's not a big difference. I feel like clearly look at it, the community has like 17, 11 Linux, 14 and CMake, and the job searchers in 2024. There's a difference between filling out both forms, right? If you're a job searcher, you will be more careful to say something. As I said, there's some folks like choose everything which they know about, and some are like, what do I really good? Where I'm really confident in an interview with. So the job searcher data is just showing what people are confident in more than the community question. Fields of work does not have that problem so much. So here we see again embedded is in the lead with desktop, followed by industry here, which also kind of acts as a catch-all, which is, in this case, there's a few terms which just generally try to cover things. And if you take a look, it's still very similar. Embedded desktop is in the lead. Industry is different in the community survey, but that's probably because it's a catch-all. And when you submit a job, your resume, you might not choose it because it's too catch-all-y and you don't choose it. Then it's followed by server, image processing, automotive, and science, which are also popular with the job seekers. And especially the fields of work is heavily influenced by the attending employers. So if we have game dev companies coming to the job fair, then game dev gets a lot more popular, and also game dev related skills get a lot more popular than when we have finance companies, for example. Years of experience through the past years, this has mostly stayed the same. We do have very experienced people submitting through the form, and we have also lots of beginners and people that start out, students, as you saw, university. And science is field where a lot of students are coming from. And then we have I think it's almost like 1/3 juniors, 1/3 people that are starting to become seniors, and 1/3 of people that are very experienced seniors. And all this data is coming from the sharing form. So thank you to all the submitters. Without you submitting this, we wouldn't know about it. And then this feeds into the tooling which Meeting C++ has. This gives me the option to generally show the community what people are available on the market, what knowledge they have. That's something we didn't know before. And companies may also filter or search on these topics to find candidates they'd like. And the candidates basically select the companies in the form which are visible to them. And also then you upload your CV resume. And not everyone, but you can add a general cover letter. And that's the Meeting C++ online job fair. Next version is in May. And so job fair, meetingcpp.com gets you there. There's a link to the sign up for employers. And just generally, if you're interested, talk to me on LinkedIn or shoot me an email. And when we look at when we had a lot of employers at the job fair, and every job fair happened when we had like 4 job fairs a year, so once a quarter we organized this job fair. That's what I aim at. And then we had amazing responses. This is like every single point is a job fair here, and we had usually the average is around 60 per job fair. And then you see that we had like sometimes we had like 2 job fairs in the same quarter. That's why some people are some of those dots are below 60. Then they were still at 40, and or they were in summertime where generally less people are in the audience for this. And then we had some job fairs where we had a lot of companies sign up early and we could advertise it very well. And then we had 1 year 100 people submitting in 1 quarter through the form. And generally for 2022 and 2023, we had over 200 submissions, unique submissions through the form. On the job fair, there's it's a virtual thing, so there are tables because it's kind of a lounge environment they try to build there. If you're a sponsor, you are also listed in the CV resume sharing form on the website, job section, etc. I'll introduce you in the live stream, which kicks off the fair. You have access to the recruiting tooling, which I have showed and will show a little bit in the next slides. And generally, it enables me to advertise it and work on this. Free tables are just for companies which want to give this a try, and you generally can talk to the audience. And I kind of had to limit this to 2 visits in the pandemic. So generally, also quickly want to answer the question: what is the table? The table is a video room. When you sit on a table and a second person joins, then you're taken to a video conferencing UI, which has then hosts a session of 1 hour with that person and everybody else that then still can join that session through clicking on a seat. Okay. And meetings have generally their own view, and this meeting view then, as I said, is 1 hour. Quick view on the recruiting tooling. Those graphs I showed you, I also have available to show you the the general profile which you've tracked as candidates, the fields they had, the experience they had, and the submissions per country. And that might be very useful to you to use those graphs in internal presentations. And also, Meeting C++ sends an email to you with a CV resume attached when a new submission is there. And also, I do have a search form and a text search because, as I said, we had 100 submissions at the peak and 50 submissions very regularly. And if you have just a few openings or one opening, you might want to just search through all the candidates you got there. And there's also, like my experience with employers, there's different strategies. Some people just pick out the ones they need, and some people talk to everyone and even, give people feedback on why they didn't get the job, or some companies just choose to be very picky with communication. And that's a job fair. It's a long-time project. It requires the C++ employer support. That's also quite kind of crucial to sign up early to see that we attract the candidates. And it's a success story now for 4 years. The job fair will be happening in end of May, and until then, I'll be, every 2 weeks posting the newsletter. If you have open positions, please reach out to me. Then I'm able to have them in the newsletter. And thanks for listening. If you have any questions, you can reach me via email and the job fair. And yeah, so if you have any more questions, post them to the chat. And otherwise, I will be closing the session. All right. I don't see questions, but I also see that LinkedIn is a bit acting up for me. So I'm generally gonna go offline. Thank you for listening. And then if you have any questions, post them in the chat and I can see them. Thank you very much.